The first can of milk, they do the first little carton of milk at a very low price, but after that it gets bad, and then it gets up to 275, 300%. They're charging us over 200% for dairy products, 250%, 270% tariff.
Mexico goes all out to grow milk production. U.S. officials complain about Canada's so-called protectionist dairy policies, but a growing number of analysts call those complaints hypocritical. Mexico has ripped up decades of dairy dependence, gutting $2.3 billion in U.S. milk sales and handing Canada a $1 billion lifeline. In just weeks, America's biggest dairy customer walked away, draining millions of pounds of product from U.S. farms and leaving rural towns to bleed. The humiliation? Mexico says Canada offers the transparency and trust Washington can't or won't deliver. If America refuses to change, this billion-dollar betrayal will be permanent. In 2023, Mexico bought $2.3 billion worth of U.S. dairy, about 1/4 of all American dairy exports. Even a small percentage loss here means hundreds of millions of dollars gone from U.S. farms. Analysts warn that just a 1% drop in Mexico's imports from the U.S. equals massive losses for rural communities. The biggest shock? Canada's total deal with Mexico is now worth over $1 billion a year. For American farmers, this is not a small dip. It's a hole in the bottom of the ship. And if the trend continues, Washington could lose its most valuable dairy market entirely. On February 4, 2025, President Trump announced a 25% tariff on Mexican imports under emergency trade powers. Within weeks, U.S. dairy exports to Mexico dropped by millions of pounds, even though global demand for dairy was still rising. American cheese sales to Mexico fell for the first time in years, a sharp warning that the market was changing. For farmers in states like Wisconsin, California, and New York, the sudden loss meant shrinking profits and higher risks. Many trade experts called it a self-inflicted wound that gave Canada a golden opening. Canada seized the moment, locking in deals while U.S. shipments slowed. What was billed as a show of strength became a costly mistake. And unless Washington changes course fast, the damage could deepen beyond repair. In January 2025, Canada put new national rules into action for its dairy industry, banning growth hormones, ending routine antibiotic use, and requiring plant-based feed for all dairy herds. By April, its ProAction traceability system was fully active, allowing every liter of milk to be traced back to the exact farm it came from. Mexican importers quickly praised this system, calling it the gold standard for food safety and animal welfare. For them, it meant no guessing and no gaps, just proof. Canada's labels now carry full transparency, showing how cows are fed and cared for, all verified through digital records. This gave Canada a powerful advantage at the exact moment U.S. shipments were losing trust. While the U.S. still relies on lot-based tracking, Canada offers clear, verifiable histories for every shipment. In modern trade, that kind of trust is priceless, and it's helping Canada win billion-dollar deals the U.S. thought it would never lose. While Canada can trace every shipment to the exact farm, the U.S. still uses lot-based tracking that doesn't record each animal's full history. This gap has already cost American exporters millions. In June 2025, Mexican customs rejected a major U.S. milk shipment for failing to meet transparency standards, sending a clear message about what buyers now demand. Without proof of how cows are raised, what they are fed, and if antibiotics were used, U.S. products face growing suspicion. For years, high volume kept America's dairy industry on top, but those days are fading. Modern trade rewards trust, not just tonnage. Countries like Mexico are looking for verifiable, ethical sourcing, and Canada is ready to provide it. If the U.S. refuses to match those standards, it risks losing more than just one market. It risks losing its place in the global dairy race entirely. By mid-2023, the number of licensed U.S. dairy farms had dropped to just 26,000, the lowest in modern history. Rising costs for feed, fuel, and labor have pushed many small families to the edge. Loan defaults are climbing as milk prices swing wildly with global market shifts and tariff disputes. In states like Wisconsin and California, empty barns and abandoned equipment now mark once thriving dairy towns. Local businesses that depended on farm income are also struggling to survive. Meanwhile, Canada's strict quotas and price insurance programs have kept its small dairies stable for over a decade. This contrast has made U.S. farms look less reliable to foreign buyers like Mexico. Every closure means less supply, fewer jobs, and weaker rural economies. Without urgent policy changes, America's dairy heartland could lose its next generation of farmers entirely. Mexico has made it clear that trust and reliability matter more than politics or cheap prices. Recent surveys show many Mexican consumers are willing to pay more for milk that is fully traceable and ethically produced. Younger buyers especially want to know how cows are treated, what they are fed, and if antibiotics are used. Canada now meets all these demands with digital records and transparent labels. In contrast, the U.S. still struggles to prove its dairy meets the same standards. Mexican trade officials have openly praised Canada's approach, calling it a model for future supply deals. By shifting billions in contracts north, Mexico is sending a warning to Washington: improve quality and transparency or risk losing this market for good. For American farmers, that's not just losing sales. It's losing the trust of a neighbor they thought they could count on forever. This dairy deal is about more than milk. It's about power in North America's trade system. By choosing Canada over the U.S., Mexico has shifted part of its food supply chain to a partner it sees as more reliable. That choice also strengthens Canada's voice in future trade talks, while weakening Washington's influence. Food security is now a tool in global politics, and Canada is using it as well. For the U.S., losing a top agricultural export market to a close ally is a diplomatic setback, not just an economic one. Other countries in Latin America are watching closely, as some may follow Mexico's example. If that happens, America's position as the region's main food supplier could crumble. This shift shows that in today's world, trust and transparency can outweigh size and production power. And right now, Canada has both, and the U.S. is struggling to catch up. If the U.S. dairy industry does not match Canada's strict traceability and animal welfare standards, Mexico's shift could become permanent. Losing the Mexican market would cost American farmers billions each year and weaken their position in other global markets. U.S. dairy exports to Mexico were $2.47 billion in 2024, with Mexico and Canada accounting for 40% of total exports. Canada's success will also inspire other countries to demand the same high standards, putting more pressure on U.S. exporters. For many small farms, meeting these demands without policy support will be nearly impossible. Meanwhile, Canada is building stronger trade relationships and locking in long-term contracts that shut out U.S. competitors. Each month of inaction in Washington makes it harder to recover lost ground. This isn't just about dairy, it's about America's place in global trade. If change doesn't come soon, the U.S. could face a slow but steady loss of influence in one of its most valuable export industries. Mexico's billion-dollar switch to Canada isn't just lost business, it's a warning that America's dominance is slipping fast. Subscribe for more hard-hitting trade stories. Share this video and tell us, can the U.S. ever win back Mexico's trust?